Welcome back, and let's continue with the kalam cosmological argument. Second premise: the universe began to exist, and the argument from an impossibility of an actual infinite number of things. And we were about to observe some objections to premise one of that argument. So let's carry on. Some objections. One of the objections comes from ignorance, as I like to say. Some might object that since we don't understand the nature of the infinite, that is why absurdities result. But this objection flies right into the face of modern set theory. Set theory is a well understood branch of mathematics, and these absurdities result because we do understand the nature of the infinite. The reason why I like to call this argument an argument from ignorance is because basically it's saying we don't understand it, so that's why we get it wrong. That's why absurdities result. Alright, another objection would be, well, if an actual infinite cannot exist, then God cannot exist. This is a misunderstanding of when a Christian says the infinity of God. See, the infinity of God is not quantitative like in numbers, it's qualitative. What's the difference? A quantitative infinite is composed of parts. God isn't composed of parts, if you will. His infinity is qualitative, or an attribute, if you will. I mean, it's not like God is made of infinite parts. That's just a quality. It's like saying I'm infinitely good. I mean, it's not composed of parts. Alright, so the second premise of the argument is obvious. If a beginningless series entails a infinite number of things, then the universe never began to exist. Then the events in time are infinite. The conclusion follows from the two premises. If an infinite cannot exist, and a beginningless series entails an infinite, then it follows that the beginningless series cannot be infinite. Therefore, the universe is not infinite but finite, and therefore it began to exist. A lot of stuff to digest there, so the second premise is basically just saying if the infinite can't exist, then the universe can't be eternal. And that's the conclusion. So yeah. Our next philosophical argument is as follows. The series of events in time is a collection formed by adding one member after the other. A collection formed by adding one member after another cannot be actually infinite. Therefore, a series of events in time cannot be actually infinite. Premise 1 seems obvious. A month is formed by 30 successive days, so premise 1 is self-evident. Things in time take place after another thing took place. To get to today, yesterday will have to arrive. Everything in time is like that, successive, as some would put it. And it all depends on what type of it depends on what theory of time you hold to. This is presupposing the A theory of time. So, and I'm not gonna get into that; it's way too lengthy. So, for the sake of making this video series short, let's just say premise one is obvious, according to the A theory of time. So let's go to premise 2. Premise 2 is based on the idea that no matter how much time one has, an infinite cannot be reached. To give it an analogy, suppose somebody, and this is from Veritas 48. I mean, check him out if you haven't heard of him. I like his analogy, so I will use it here. Suppose I drank some water from the fountain of youth. Of course, I changed it a little bit. Now, I can live forever. Suppose that, and then I decided to spend the rest of my endless life counting all the natural numbers. 20,000 years pass, and I made it to the number, I don't even know what that is. I'm just going to say 5 quintillion or something like that. Now, let's suppose another person who drank from the fountain decides to count with me, and he reaches the number 45. Now, I'm thinking, this guy is nowhere near my number. Then it dawns on me that I also made no progress, despite that I am pretty far in counting. For the guy counting with me has the same number of number of numbers to count, as I do, namely an infinite amount of numbers, when could spend literally all eternity counting and never reach infinity, because there will always be one more number to count. You cannot count backward from infinity either, for where will one begin? What is the number before infinity? So basically, it's saying, even though I would have made it to 5 quintillion, I will just keep on counting and I'll never reach infinity. Or there will never be a point like I'll be like 999999999 quintillion infinity. No, it doesn't work that way. There'll always be another number. So therefore, this is a potential infinite and not an actual infinite. Another point can also be made in defense of premise 2. That is the point that of transversing the infinite. Let's say the universe is eternal. Prior to today, the universe would have transversed an infinite number of days or past events. Now, if this were true, then we will never arrive at today. For before one event could happen, the event before it will have to happen. But before that can happen, the event before it will have to happen. And so on and so forth. To give an analogy, suppose that person A wants to borrow a pen. So he goes to person B, and person B says, sure, but I don't have one. So he goes to person C, and person C goes to person D, and so on and so forth. Person A will never get that pen because each person in this series is a borrowing lender. The only way for the series to end is if somebody who owns the actual pen comes forth. It is the same scenario for time. In time, one day cannot happen until another day happens. Well, that day can't happen until this other day happens. And that can't happen, and we will never arrive today if it were infinite, because there will always be another day that will have to occur before that day can occur. So premise 2 seems to be plausible. So the conclusion follows logically. If an infinite series cannot be formed by successive addition, then the universe cannot be, and the universe is formed by successive addition, and the universe cannot be infinite but must be finite, therefore it began to exist. Next, we will look at scientific arguments for the premise 2 of the kalam, and I'll see you in the next video.